committee met the other day via Zoom, and we were all thinking about the fact that at this point this year, we should be very, very tired and just barely hanging in with all the work from the art show. But it is what it is, and we'll move on. The celebration of creativity has been a major supporter of art in the Beaverton, in the city, in the schools, in the community, and also for our church. We're a major supporter of the Southminster Surroundings Committee. We have helped purchase carpeting, painting, upgrades to the church, and a lot of the art that you see among the church is from a purchase by the Celebration of Creativity. I think some of you might be interested to know that the very first art show 43 years ago made the sum total of right around $900, and the committee took 10%. So with their $90 that they had from the show, they purchased a piece of art. And I am not sure which piece of art that is, but we should probably find that out. Maybe some of the committee members here today will know. The other wonderful thing about the show is it has brought us many new members. Some have been artists who've come and just enjoyed being with us. Some are people that visited the art show and looked around and thought they might come back and see what was going on. Some of you actually arrived unknowingly on Art Show Sunday and had the privilege of seeing the sermon in the round with all the art around us. So it's been a wonderful way of building our church community as well. Over the years, there have been countless numbers of church artists who have participated in the art show. And today, I know Janet has done a wonderful job of scraping up 6 of them that are going to share their art and their pictures. So I'm going to turn it over to Janet, but know that after the pictures, the committee, a lot of committee members are here on Zoom today, and we're more than willing to share with you what our plans are for the future and answer any questions that you have. Okay, Janet?
Yeah, thank you. Next up is Karen Butler, and she's going to represent the artist with a little more in-depth story, one artist story. It's how she came to do the beautiful work that she does, her inspiration. And Karen, thank you. So,
good morning. So I'm starting with a picture of Ghost Ranch because that's where my story of my art starts. Growing up, I would never have considered myself an artist. My one required art class in school was a semester in junior high. And I don't know who was more frustrated in that process, the teacher, Mrs. Curtis, or myself, because it was frustrating. I just didn't have that flair. But then Ghost Ranch kind of started me on the journey. So this is a picture of Kitchen Mesa at Ghost Ranch. And if you don't know what Ghost Ranch is, it's an amazing resource of the Presbyterian Church. It's a retreat center in northern New Mexico that welcomes people from all over the world. It is an amazing place. It's where Georgia O'Keeffe painted. So these are the red cliffs that's similar to her work. We started going there when our daughter was 2. So we've gone most years for the last 33 years. And we go for 1 to 2 weeks every summer. And we go because—
Karen, are you sharing your screen? I'm not seeing anything.
You're not seeing it? Consultant left. Okay.
Down at the bottom of your screen, it should say share screen.
Well, I have the PowerPoint up, so just a sec. So we returned every year, and this is where I started my art journey. The first art class I took, I think, was a quilting class. I moved on from quilting to different media to glass, which is what you are all familiar with, my fused glass. But to me, it's the combining of different shapes, colors, and textures that make it what I enjoy the most. So this is a quilt that I made, which shows combining colors, textures, etc. And that's kind of how I started. And I refer to my glass work, my fused glass work, as sometimes as quilting with glass, because it's the same sort of idea. This is the very first piece of stained glass I made at Ghost Ranch in 1999. They don't recommend a 63 piece for your first one, but that's what I did. So this was made in 1 week at Ghost Ranch. The next year, this one actually took me 2 years. So this is a typical Southwest Pueblo. And the challenge of this one is to get it to look three-dimensional when you're working in one dimension. And you can hold the piece of glass up and say, okay, it's got this clarity, this depth of tone, etc. But then you put it on flat where you're building your piece and you can no longer see that. So you have to remember that part of it as you're working with the adjacent pieces to make it look like the side or the front or the back or the light coming from a certain direction. This is another piece I did, this one of the side lights for our front door. And this one, at least I could take, the pieces were smaller in it. So bringing them back and forth to Ghost Ranch on an airplane was a little easier because they would fit in my suitcase. This is another above a door. And then also related to glass work, Mosaic is something else I've done at Ghost Ranch. I figured it was related because you use some of the same materials and I didn't need to take on a new hobby, but Mosaic, it was fun. You can take found objects, everything under the sun. It's a good way to recycle things, to be green in your art. And the woman who teaches at Ghost Ranch, Kathy Thaden, is wonderful. She's actually teaching some online classes through Ghost Ranch now. This is another mosaic I did. The theme of that class was circles. So we had to figure out how to work mosaics with a circle theme. And so then, you know, some of these were found objects, some are things she had, some are things I took with me. There's buttons, there's glass, obviously. There's all kinds of things, some things that have special meaning. There's gravel I went and picked up and washed. There's mirror, there's all kinds of fun stuff. So this is what you're more familiar with. This is some of my jewelry, and you can see the similarity to the quilts, the colors, the textures, etc. There's two different cycles of fusing that I use. The one on the lower left is what's called a full cycle. So that goes to a higher temperature and it melts the layers completely together. The other two are a tack fuse, which is a lower temperature cycle. And so you retain some of that three-dimensional quality to it. This is a pair of earrings, the full fuse as well, but showing the fusing of three different pieces of glass together to make the end design. I've branched out at times into other things, some dishes, and the purple one has silk screened flowers on it. The zebras at the top is a decal, so learning different techniques, and I learned all of these techniques in classes at Ghost Ranch. This shows the components to make what becomes a nightlight. So I make these components with an interesting process. Who ever knew that you could take powdered glass, make it in a slurry, put it in a mold, take some of the water off so it's a certain consistency, stick it in your freezer, freeze it for at least an hour, take it out of the mold, put it in a kiln, fire it to 1100 degrees, and it would stay in the shape that the mold made. It's just, whoever thought of even trying this is beyond me, thinking in terms of the physics involved in the process of melting glass, but it works. And so these are some of the pieces I use then to make nightlights such as these. So all of the components of these, I make the components themselves then and put them together to make a picture. Probably the most more artistic part of what I do. I've also started doing some landscapes such as these. These you're taking powdered glass or glass frit of different sizes. So it ranges in size up to little rocks from powder in all different colors, and then firing them in the kiln and seeing what the results are, because kilns can do interesting things. Sometimes I say opening the kiln is like Christmas. Sometimes it's a really nice surprise. And sometimes you have to think about it a little while and go, oh, okay, that's what happened. But, and this is one of my last ones I did that I'm really proud of. So these were taken that was taken from a photograph that Craig had taken. I can't remember what waterfall here in the Northwest, and then done in glass. So I've used the water and part of the waterfall is a solid piece of glass, but everything else on here is made from frit. So different sizes and different colors of glass. So that's the end of my presentation, but just to know that you may not think of yourself as an artist, but everybody has a journey of some sort, including an artistic journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That was beautiful. I think all of us have enjoyed seeing your work develop. And as I told you last night when we were talking on the phone, all of Southminster is adorned in your beautiful jewelry. We all recognize it when we wear it, and we all have beautiful pieces. So thank you for sharing your story. It makes me want to go to Ghost Ranch.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, next up, we're going to feature 5 more artists. And they're not going to tell their individual journeys, but I'm asking each of them at the beginning of their presentation of their pieces that they introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their journey and what the art show has meant to them in terms of their artistic development. So here we go.
Just putting this all together so it works.
Okay, first up is Carrie Gifford. It's okay if you can unmute and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I first came to the art show, I think it must have been around 2002 or 2003. And I heard that you could come back on Sunday and see kind of art in the round. And so I did that, and I was just blown away by the beauty of it and the way Peg walked around the room. And her theme that Sunday was creativity. And one of the points she made was that if we could create so much of this art and do it in such a creative way, what about in the community? Couldn't we use our creativity to make our efforts and change in the community as well? And that really grabbed me, and I was hooked on Southminster. I think, well, back with what Karen was saying about, I never thought of myself as an artist either. And it was about 2007 that I first showed my work in the celebration of creativity. I found an old inventory sheet last night when I was thinking about this, and the first one that I found, it may have been before that, but that's the one, that's when I remember. I'm not really sure what I sent to Janet at this point, but I'm pretty sure they're all watercolors.
Maybe we can pause for 1 second. Janet seems to be having a little difficulty with the sharing.
No, you can't see the Kay Gifford slide.
We can see it says Kay Gifford. I thought you were trying to.
I was going to show the pictures when she's finished talking.
Oh, okay, good.
Good.
So a lot of my art is inspired by travels, particularly when I was, we took 2 safaris in Africa, and that had got me going on African animals for quite a while. Since COVID, I've been working more on some landscapes and in watercolor, and then some acrylic work.
Right. Well, thank you, Karen. And I think your zebras are iconic. And here are the other pieces that Karen chose to share today.
Oh. Isn't that neat?
Yeah. I had trouble with it. See, skip here. Oh, shoot.
Oh, nice.
They're skipping around. Sorry about that, Kay.
That's okay. That one was my Christmas card, looking forward.
I like that. Okay. The next person is Janice Gunderson, and she can't be here today. She's out of town, so she sent her pictures. And she wrote that she began making jewelry because she wanted to have things to wear that went with her outfits, and that she has developed her technique over time and has been a regular participant in the art show and very appreciative of that opportunity. And she sent quite a few pictures of her work. Oops. I don't know why it's skipping.
Donna. It's our neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, Donna. Can you unmute, Donna?
Yes, can you hear
Okay.
me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning. First of all, I wanted to run upstairs and put on some Karen Butler jewelry when she started speaking, and I didn't have time, but I've been arranging the boutique for several years and had the pleasure of showing Karen's work in there, but I haven't seen some of the stained glass, so I hope we see that again soon. I can echo what Kay said about coming to Southminster for the art show a number of years ago and bringing my mother, who came out to live here in Portland. And I just fell in love with the show. And my mom and I also fell in love with the church as a whole. So we became members. I started taking my mom to watercolor classes at the Stir Center to give her some things to do. And I found out that I got hooked myself on watercolor and started painting about 12 or 13 years ago and just found it just captivating. I love the medium. So most of the paintings that you'll see today are watercolors. However, there's one slide that shows two kind of quirky looking flowers. Most of my watercolors are quite realistic. I love doing realistic work and I love the detail. But I'm experimenting now with some acrylic and some alcohol ink and doing what's called negative painting, where I start with saturating a piece of paper with color. This is just something that didn't work and it's just an end of something. But then once that color is dry, it's acrylic and alcohol ink. Once it's dry, I start visualizing what I could pull out of that to make a cohesive painting. And I paint the painting by actually painting around the shapes that I see. So in other words, painting the negative space or the background, and then the painting emerges. And from that point, I can start adding more detail embellishments with pen and ink and more paint. And it's been a total change from my usual way of painting, and certainly imaginary rather than realistic, but I've enjoyed it tremendously. And the show itself, I've enjoyed for years, and I love it so much because of the way the church pulls together to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. We'll look forward to seeing your new work.
Thank you.
These people are pretty good, you know? Ooh, isn't that nice?
Gotta get those figs. We had trouble getting these figs, so.
They're not shaped exactly like that, but.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but they were pretty. I love the way the light reflects off of them. Thank you, Donna. Next up, Alita.
Good morning. My love affair with fabric and sewing started really long time ago. I made my first doll clothes when I was about 5 years old under the careful tutelage of my mother. And as I grew up, I never thought of sewing or anything as an art form. It was just something I needed to do to have new school clothes or to have a prom dress or whatever it was I needed. And as time went on, I just kept doing it out of necessity. And then I decided, well, maybe I could do it more for fun. So then I switched to making something that my family thought I'd totally lost my mind. I started making reusable fabric gift bags. And it was like, oh, okay, we'll humor her. You know, she's a little stressed and whatever. So they used the gift bags. A few years later, you couldn't find any wrapping paper at the Christmas gathering because everybody was using reusable fabric bags. And from there, I just started adding things to my repertoire. And my daughter, one summer when she visited, fell in love with a purse at the Saturday market in downtown Portland. And it was made out of a Clue game board. And she absolutely loved that game. So I went back a couple of weeks later and bought it for her, but it piqued my curiosity and I tried to figure out how they made this. So before I gave it to her for her birthday, I figured out how to make it, invested in an industrial sewing machine because you can't sew through a game board or the cover of a book on your regular little Singer sewing machine. So I have come close to going over my fingers any number of times with this very powerful industrial machine, and I totally disable it when my grandsons are coming because it would do severe damage to them. So anyway, that's how I got going on making the game purses out of cutting up a game board. And just a couple of years ago, mostly I do it for special orders now, but a friend sent me 2 game boards that she wanted purses made out of, and even told me which section of the game board I should cut and what should be the front of the purse and what should be the back and what color the handles would be, which really brings me a lot of joy because I know somebody specifically wants that. So most of my sewing now is just for fun, and I do a couple of bazaars every year and then the art show if it works out. And I branched off into a lot of different kinds of purses. Just ask my friends that I travel with. I just absolutely drive them nuts. We can be in a foreign country and I'm trying to find the fabric store. And one time I had to buy an extra piece of luggage to get some of the fabric home, but that's okay. Life without fabric would be a very dull experience for me. So I've been in the art show, I don't know how many years, maybe 10 or so. Mostly now I don't do the game purses, I do other kinds of fabric bags and lots of different kinds of wallets. So I expect my love affair with fabric to last for the rest of my life.
I don't know why they doesn't want to stay on that picture of you. There was that wonderful one of you at is that your industrial sewing machine or your other one?
No, that's just my regular Wiener one.
You've got a real stack of stuff there. Looks like
it's placemats for the fall bazaars.
Okay. Okay, Jody. You there, Jody? Can you unmute?
There. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay, okay. All righty. I'm going to read mine so I can get through it fast. So here I go. When I reflect on the evolution of the creation of creativity, the past 40 years, it also is a reflection on how my artwork has become what it is now. And also, I have to say that the art show has become, has and is a source of wonderful long-time relationships. In the early years, I painted simple watercolors, and to my surprise, they sold quite well. They later were replaced by mostly acrylic landscapes, which in turn were replaced by collage and layers of acrylic, also some figures and lots of texture. I dabbled in some glass art at the insistence of Alma Rands, but now I've become a junkie. My Helena, Montana son-in-law's dad passed away 5 years ago and left behind an amazing workshop full of odds and ends and many old and rusty objects, I guess. I was offered whatever I wanted, and that began my junk journey. I literally hit the jackpot when a Helena friend and a neighbor up the gulch said they had several abandoned gold mine campsites on their property, and I could take what I wanted. So my junk inventory increased dramatically, but I needed something to mount these beautiful and historic pieces on. Beautiful to me, I must say, pieces on. So I found a business in Bozeman that had reclaimed lumber. They tore down old barns, old sheds, and then sold them, you know, for homes that were being built. And they offered me wonderful old odds and ends at a very agreeable price. And in some cases, just asked me to haul it away. I also acquired an amazing amount of old rusty barbed wire from a historic ranch north of Helena. Don's sermon really hit me this morning because, like Don's sermon, working on objects over 100 years old gave me a cause to live in the moment, and still does. The junk became beautiful. The goal is to arrange so others can see it as more than undesirable metal or wood, and it tells a story. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that must be one of the reasons the creation of creativity, excuse me, the celebration of creativity has become so successful. Over the years, we have presented a smorgasbord of art, something wonderful for all to enjoy.
Thank you, Jody. And this is what she's done with those remarkable collections. Hi. Is this your garden, Jody?
Yes, that's out on the back of my house. Yeah. Up against the back of my house. That was my first one. It's mostly from things I gathered from the coast.
I know some of the women who sent me their things said that they no longer own them because they sold the pieces at the art show, and they were sending me photographs of their work. Is that true of your pieces as well, Jody?
Most of these that you see, I still have, but I have sold quite a few of them. There are people who actually enjoy old rusty things or old wood. And they're good. They seem to have a niche outside. This is one of the last ones that I've done. This is one of my COVID pieces. And I don't know if you can see, that's an old rusty ice skate that's on there. And I'm trying to find an old rusty skate key to go with it. So if any of you have it in your drawer somewhere, please let me know. That was one of my first ones that I did with my son-in-law's father's hardware that I found. And you might recognize it. I think it was in the art show.
Very pretty. Okay, well, thank you. We have remarkable artists, and there are others that were unable to participate today. So we'll look forward to seeing their work in the future. So now I'd like to turn it back to Jean, who's going to talk about plans for next year, and then we'll open it up to questions to all of our artists and to members of the art show committee. So Jean, can you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, having looked at all these pieces of art, I have to add one thing. Remember I said that the first art show sold
Right. He's got to place the truck.
$900, and we took a 10% commission. For the record, last year's art show made $69,427. We now take a 30% commission, which is still much less than most of the galleries in town. So our donation to art in the community and the church and everywhere else was $28,936. So I think we can commend our artists and all the people that support our show. It's been tremendous. Our committee met a week ago on Zoom to talk about next year's show. And there were some pros and some cons. So I've listed the things that we talked about in our committee, and I just am going to read some of these to you so you can get a feel for what kinds of things we contemplated during the meeting. Some of the pros for having a show next year is that a lot of artists have been working through the pandemic and have lots of stuff that they want to sell. So we think that we could probably have a really great inventory. The other thing is that not many art shows are going to be happening next year. I know Lake Oswego has canceled theirs. I think Local 14 is going on a internet kind of selling. So ours being later, 1 year from now, would probably be a really good opportunity to get lots of good artists and lots of material in the show. We thought about the fact that we could make a roster for this year, and if it didn't work, we could just move that roster on to next year if the artists wanted to participate then. But that's kind of difficult too. Some of the cons that we have is, first of all, we don't know where we're going to be standing COVID-wise with all the new strains that are coming out. We don't know even what the church is going to be offering as far as getting inside the church and how many people can be there at a time. And it would be really difficult to find artists, even though they're doing lots of work. We spend from March until September going to art shows, going to galleries, calling artists, going out to their studios. And in order to do that this year would be very, very difficult with the COVID. We also really took into consideration our church community. Many of you have worked on the checking in and checking out process, and you know it is just jam-packed with people all the time in very close quarters. So that would be a real issue. We don't want anybody in our church getting sick. We want to keep everybody safe. We don't want to put them at risk unnecessarily. And then even after that, if we did do the show, would people actually want to come? You know, during the days and the afternoons, it probably would be very feasible to have people walking around the show because it's not terribly crowded. The opening Thursday night, Friday morning, Saturday morning are extremely crowded. And so we didn't want to put anybody else at risk. So as of now, the committee has made a decision, very sadly, that we're going to postpone the show one more year. So that's where we are. We hope that by doing this Sunday today, that it will keep enthusiasm going for the art show. And that if you find artists that you think would be great in the show, that you still give us names. We're still contacting people. But at this point in time, we've just felt that it's not a very safe, prudent thing to do to plan the show for the following year. So that's where we are as a committee on the art show. And several of us are here to answer questions. If anybody has any questions or any comments that they want to make, we'd be happy to listen.
Okay.
That was a great job. I really enjoyed seeing everybody's art. That does make me sad that we're not doing that in real life. I mean, in face to face, but certainly understand.
Will the art committee be doing anything through this next year that people could participate in, or is it just kind of a general step back and wait?
I think it's probably a general sit back and wait. And the one thing that we really, really appreciate is anybody that sees an artist or finds one even online, or if you happen to be on a vacation or going to an art gallery one-on-one with different people, because they will let you in if it's just one person there. Send us their names. That's probably the best thing that you can do right now, is just keep us informed of artists that you see.
Another thing too, if you happen to see artists you like, you can maybe tell them about our show too.
Yes.
And maybe that would get them inspired.
So I don't know that you have to tell them about the show. I have a story to tell.
Do you?
So I'm part of the Oregon Glass Guild, and the Guild was thinking of putting on a show and had a chance to rent the Forestry Center. And so they were talking about the time frame needed and that we could get access to the building on Thursday and wanted to open the show on Friday evening. And everyone agreed it would be like the Southminster show.
Oh.
No one said, what does that mean? Everybody knew exactly what that meant.
Oh, really?
And I said, okay, to make it like the Southminster show in a space you've never used before with lighting you don't know about, you need to start on Sunday to open on Friday night. And they looked at me and I said, this is true. This I know, and we know our space. We've done it for years, but this, and they looked at me and said, okay, I guess we can't do it.
That's great. I like that story, Karen.
We just had a talent show at Viva Village, and we had artists who exhibited their work. And for each of them, when I asked if they had participated in the art show, the Southminster Art Show is like the brass ring. You know, it would be something they aspire to. They all knew about it. And I will be sending you the names of some of them because I think they deserve a larger venue for showing their work.
Oh, that's perfect.
I think at least here in Beaverton, the Southminster Art Show is really got a stellar reputation among artists and in the community.
That was one other thing that we were considering when we talked about whether we could have the show. We always do it, any artist that we haven't seen, we always do a jurying of that art in August. And that too would have been a really difficult thing to do. It sounds like August is far away, but COVID wise, it's not.
You know, for me, that decision, the congregation is so wonderful and everyone comes out. It's such a community builder for us. But the idea that we might be risking the people, our friends and neighbors, the whole thing cannot happen without everybody's help. And we just couldn't see risking people's health.
Backdrop.
So, I'm really looking forward to 2023.
Oh my, Mary Lou. I can also put in a plug for Ghost Ranch. It is a great place for learning about different art, photography classes. So I worked there one summer in college. It's a great place.
Bookshelves are really tipping.
I have a question for Kay Gifford. It
Yes.
seems like a lot of your work, Kay, is around theme. Like you said, you started with your African animals. And so how many pieces do you basically do in a theme before you kind of tire or feel you've explored it and move on to something else? Because I know when you sent your pictures, you kind of put them, you know, the people and then the birds. And so and I've got one of yours here in my home. It looks like a choir that was.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember doing a number of those. It really varies, Janet. I can't put a number on it. And I kind of do them until I feel like, okay, that's maybe the last giraffe I want to do for a while. Or the last zebra. Those stripes really get to you after a while.
Oh, the zebra for sure.
So right now I'm doing a lot of birds, it seems.
And do you paint from photographs or do you paint by?
Sometimes, yeah. I use photographic resources, and sometimes I'll use several photographs and put it together into a composition.
I'd like to say a few words about the origin of the art show 43 years ago. And I was not here for the first 2 years. But the whole idea was because Beaverton did not have any venues at that time for to display community art. There were a few galleries. The Beaverton Arts Association was just getting on its feet. Their displays looked just about like ours in the early years. We did it, as I understand, the idea was to bring art into the Beaverton community because there was a lack of it. And just absolutely boggles my mind now, it has for years, as the art show has evolved into, it's taken on a life of its own, and it's so well respected. The artists love it. They love, well, there are a few exceptions. I know some of us have had some incidences, shall we say, but overall, it's a remarkable coming together of community.
For sure.
And I just wanted to say a word. Thank you, Janet, for organizing all of this and all of you artists. Kathy and I certainly have several pieces, something from every one of the artists that presented today. We just adore your work. We don't see ourselves as artists per se, but we just always love the annual celebration of creativity. We've been there 14 years, and every year it just is an amazing example of bringing people together, but also to celebrate not only art and community, but how each one of us is uniquely talented in who we are. So I do want to say thank you. I feel like I'm privileged. I have so many pastor friends that ask me, so what is it that you do? And I tell them, and they're like amazed. And to have it be something we've done for 42 years is just amazing. I'm sad too that we won't do it next year, but I do think it's probably the wisest decision at this time, and the vision will not
So what's the problem?
not be let go. So I look forward to 2 years from now. So thank you, all of you.
Jean, or one of you from the art show committee, how many artists participate in any given show?
Well, I can answer that. Some of the rest of you could too. It's gone to the point now where we usually have right around, I think, 85 to 90 artists a year.
Yeah, I think we had 89.
89 last year.
last year, Jean.
Yeah. So I just want to say, Rebecca knows and Elaine knows and Daphne knows, especially how many artists, because they do all of the contact with the artists. And believe me, I've done it. It is a huge, huge job. I don't think a lot of people realize that once the art show is over, by the end of March, we're swinging into the following year. It is a year-long project.
It is. It's, you kind of have to go by months, you know, what do I do this month and then the next month? So it's a process that we have to go through, so.
And any of you are willing to join.
Yeah, really.
It is a labor of love.
You're
and
right,
a
Mary
lot
Lou.
of fun.
Yeah.
How big is your committee?
Rebecca, how many do we have on the,
The
probably
leadership.
about 9 on a central leadership team.
Right.
And it used to be that 1 or 2 people would head it all up.
Mhm.
And we finally got smart a few years ago and we broadened it out. So one person's in charge of publicity, one person's in charge of artists, one person's in charge of food, different kinds of things. So that leadership team meets several times during the year.
Right.
But then you all know during the show, the committee that works are all the volunteers. And we've had as many as what, 25, 30 at a potluck to, you know, to open the shows and things like that. So
Yeah.
a lot of people involved.
Hello and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Being the age I am, it seems like 2023 is so long in coming. I wonder, is there a way we can keep Southminster's name in artists' view so that they're planning for 2023? In other words, know that we're going to have a show, but it's going to be a pretty long time till it happens. Just wondering.
That's a good idea, Georgia. I think we actually talked about it somewhat in our leadership team meeting
Good.
a couple of months ago, but I'm writing this down so that we can possibly do something like that.
I mean, there will be artists gathering, and at those gatherings, our name should be there for 2023.
Well, this is where our website comes in.
That's true.
Right.
People know to consult the website, and that's how one way we let them know that.
That's good. That's good.
And so we put the word out, and as we talk to artists informally too, we'll put
right.
Of course, this decision to not go in 2022 was just made in the last week.
Right. So we've got the rest of 21 and all of 22.
Right.
Hopefully,
you know,
we'll be
to keep our name in the artist's view.
Georgia,
as something to anticipate.
We will be starting to contact artists in 2022.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will, you know, as soon as it is safe, we will be out there beating the bushes as we do.
Sounds good to me, and I get excited already. And I don't know if I'll still be there.
Well, the other thing I'm wondering if,
good luck, girls.
I'm wondering if maybe expanding what we did today, thinking about doing something like that next year, doing a little bit more of what we just did today and making it like a mini virtual art show. I don't know if something like that would be possible.
I question whether anybody would tune in that if we're not going to sell the art. And I think one of the things some of the shows are doing is they're putting the pieces online like this and letting people buy it. That's another whole huge.
Oh yeah, that's
ballgame.
really.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I think about is we have members of our committee in the church that belong to the Watercolor Guild, belong to the Jewelry Guild, belong to the Glass Guild, belong to the Pottery. And in their meetings, they're always bringing up our shows. So I think that helps to keep the artists, our name in front of the artists.
Well, I think you mentioned that a number of the other local art shows are also being canceled. So there's going to be a lot of inventory out there.
I think so.
The guild show that's usually at the convention center the last weekend in April or the first weekend in May has gone virtual this year. They're going to do it, and then people are being encouraged to have an Etsy site or something like that to sell through, but it will happen just in a virtual environment. And I can connect, you know, the Glass Guild has a newsletter, the two galleries I'm part of have newsletters, have ways of reaching members and other people. And if we're, you know, write a little blurb for their newsletters that say Southminster will be back in 2023, I think that would be helpful as well.
That would be great, Carrie.
I think that's a great idea
Really
to get it in the gallery newsletters.
Yeah.
Good idea.
What if you, I have a suggestion, if I can maybe speak out of turn. What if you did something like we've been doing that's been done with the Southminster newsletter, is featuring a member a month, 2 or 3 members a month, feature on a website 2 or 3 artists a month.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Marilyn. I just want to tell everybody hi, and I enjoyed seeing all of you today so much. It's been a long time. I love you all. I miss you. That's my fault, not yours. Anyway, I remember a time when we used to have I think it was once a month, we featured an artist or two from the church and just set it up in the gallery in the corner, put out a couple of grids and, you know, just to kind of keep things alive if people want, and they could be for sale at that point if you wanted to.
That's a nice idea.
And then
you could have a mini show a year from now of our congregation artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do just congregation artists.
Good to see you, Sharon.
Good to see you all.
Well, it's good to see you guys too. Yeah.
Sharon, is that the Christmas tree in back of you?
The St. Patrick's Day tree. Green, and it's got shamrocks on it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you had any melting of snow?
Yes, the snow is almost gone. It melts in phases. So the backyard is getting, but there's still snow back there. So just it's
well,
going.
You keep on, you can mow it.
Oh, it still freezes at night, so there's still frost on the part that's uncovered. So yeah. So
well, we had freeze the other night, so nanner.
Not down to 19 though, did you? 18?
No,
not that far.
No. We're still on this side of the Rockies.
Yeah. So miss everybody. It's good to see everybody.
Good to see you. Good to see you too, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there are any more questions for the art show committee or the artists. If not, I'd just like to thank everyone for participating. It certainly whetted my appetite for more, and we love you artists and the art show committee. I think we all hold you in the highest of regard for your dedication and your commitment, your talent, your vision, and really your courage in making what must have been a very difficult decision. But I think all of us have really tried hard to stay safe, and we don't want to let our guard down now. So thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Want to invite everybody to go on up to the church and pick up the paintbrushes yourself and add to the mural that actually 3 of our artists, Jody, Donna, and Kay, actually created the mural that everyone is painting this morning. So we know it'll be beautiful. And so thank you, everyone.